Украина начала евроинтеграцию, вот тогда весь переполох тогда и начался.
Ось ця проросійська частина влади прозвалилася. І здається, Господи, нарешті от все закінчилося. А ні, тільки все починається.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Начались авиаудары, начались бомбежки, войска двинулись через границу, и мы проснулись в другом мире.
Быстрее, быстрее, родненькие, накрываем, быстрее!
Вийде подмог!
Детей 200-х вывозили, мирное население.
Когда уже становилось очень-очень плохо, когда бомбежки усиливались, я просто сидела и думала, как безболезненнее умереть вместе с ним.
От жизни освободили, от жилья освободили, от работи освободили, от всього освободили.
Та й всьою державою фашист, що він зробив? Його не може весь світ зупинити.
Ми завжди раді людям, гостям. Але цим гостям, які до нас прийшли з мечем, ми не раді.
Ребенок в 19 лет вообще ничего не видел. Он мне сказал, а кто, если не мы, мужчины, будем вас защищать.
Гордость за то, как мы сейчас объединились. Я очень горжусь тем, что я украинец.
Мы обязательно победим! Слава Украине!
Freedom on Fire, I guess it's a piece connected to Winter on Fire, which the world familiar with, my revolution of dignity of Maidan Square in the capital of Ukraine, in Kiev. And people all familiar with the revolution that happened in Ukraine. And people also familiar with the invasion that happened this year, which I went to capture and bring through my new piece, Freedom on Fire. But what is also important, that for many people in Ukraine, and for myself as well, the real war started in 2014, immediately after Maidan. And people can see it in Winter on Fire, because one of the last cards, if you will rewatch it, you will see we said that the war started. I guess the world, due to many circumstances that we had in these last 8 years, world kind of neglected these 8 years of the war, but only paid attention to the full-scale invasion today, in 2022. And I think for me, where I left it on Maidan, I went back, picked this up, and created Freedom on Fire, showing all these 8 years of escalation that brought to full escalation war in on the grounds of, it's a little bit coldish, in the grounds of Ukraine. But I also try to portray in my new movie not just the war on the grounds of Ukraine, but also war inside of the media. Because I think in today's world, we can't neglect the fact of the propaganda, which is influenced many Russian people to stand for Putin's decision to annexation of Crimea, annexation of many territories in Ukraine, and all this conflict.
Wow. Does your film focus on that specifically, the fight between the media? Or what is the...
No, I think you have a parallel. You have parallels where you can see the narrative of the war by the ordinary human people, civilians, and in the same time it's blended with the propaganda machine that we're showing in opposite side in Russia. So that's how you literally see in the narrative of Russians, and something that proven on a front grounds of the war in Ukraine, against this propaganda machine.
So tell me a little bit about the filming process for this. You said you did it very quickly, and then there was a turnaround. You were over there on the ground. Your experience working with that?
Listen, experience working with Ukrainians, I already proved in Winter on Fire. So I went back to my team when the invasion happened, and I realized that I need to engage all my team back. I also engaged my American team, my UK team. So everybody jumped in, and because Winter on Fire was one place, one square, one city, it was all local. Here we had one country, literally everywhere. because the invasion started from 4 different points in Ukraine. So you have the entire country, you have also across the border, we filmed in Poland, we filmed in Russia. So I think what pushed me even into increasing the team of filmmakers was all these circumstances. And we, from 28 filmmakers that were in winter, we went into 43 filmmakers who were capturing this. From one editor like Vils Nidarik, who was working, and a few others in Winter on Fire, we went into 9 editors in this one. So that allowed us to craft the movie in less than 6 months and less than 3 months of editing. We had a huge team of Ukrainian people who were translating all these things simultaneously as it was unfolding. We were filming until literally last shots in this movie is on the 9th of August in the bombs, under the bombs in Nikolaev. We had a voiceover of amazing Helen Mirren recorded by her on the 26th of August, delivering movie on the 31st of August to Venice Film Festival. So it's literally was, as the war was unfolding, our progress was unfolding. So it's interesting filmmaking, but it's also interesting how entire team was devoted to this, devoted to the storytelling, and at the same time I tried to educate the world on all aspects of this 8 years war, and on the other side of this war of 21st century, on a media kind of challenging war that we are facing these days.
Yeah, I have to ask this question as a journalist here in the States. How do you feel the coverage of the war is going in regards to the American media?
The problem that I saw from the beginning of this invasion 2022, that I predicted the cycle that Syria had. So the hype at the beginning, the slowing process going down by 2-3 months after, and slowly disappearing, and only few outlets will be still covering. But again, the media coverage is always about, oh, they just won something, or extraordinary events of Ukrainians winning this, or, and then it's again disappears, because the media getting tired to bring the war, and specifically, mostly, like I said, the media portraying the war in the trenches with the soldiers, winning, defeats, achievement, and so I try to focus as a filmmaker on the human stories. For me, Freedom on Fire have ordinary mothers, ordinary civilians, ordinary medics, ordinary volunteers, priests. So for me, it's a stories that you not see in the media, and it's a stories that can be relatable to the ordinary audience that will be watching this. Same like in Winter on Fire, you had ordinary people. For me, it's the nation who are heroes, and for me, it's the nation who suffers in that case because of this invasion. So for me, it's their voices. It's the mothers who every night praying that their child will wake up tomorrow, to talk through the screen, through my lens of the camera, to the mothers in the other side of the world, let's say in America or in Europe, mothers who every morning looking at the face of their child and smiling, enjoying how the child are growing. So I think it's the ordinary people to ordinary people. It's the human bridge that I'm finding through my lens. And it's also important for me that I'm taking through my experience, being there, through the lens of my cameras, my audience into the same situations what I experienced. Going back to your question about the media, I think it's a certain roller coaster where sometimes it's no hype, sometimes it's really on a low position, sometimes it's even disappearing, because each media cycle are similar to the war. I saw it with the Syrian media cycle, but it's also because each country have its own issues which are becoming more hot topics. And I think that's what's happening. And we slowly forgetting about this war. And for me, that's the World War III, actually, what we are facing today, because all worlds are affected.
Yeah, it's spreading. It's basically like a cancer which has begun there, and it continues to affect other countries, and now it's too hard to ignore, and it's just going to have a ripple effect, and it continue to be as painful as it is. The other day with the one bridge to Crimea, blown up, and that the supply lines are now cut. I read about it every day. The New York Times is my publication of choice, but I do appreciate your words of how our country is showcasing it, and I would like to do the job that I'm doing to showcase about your movie so that audiences can check that out as well. Where can people go to find out more about your film that's screening it?
We are really grateful to Hamptons Film Festival, who in a minute I wrote to David, whom I met in 2017. He said, Evgeny, we want to bring your movie here, we want to have US premiere, and it was really an honor to come here, to bring the US premiere and start it from here, after Venice world premiere and Toronto North American premiere. And people can see the movie today at Sag Harbor at 2 p.m. Then we're heading to other festivals across the states. It's Mill Valley Festival, it's Seattle. Mill Valley we have 11th and 12th of this month. 13th we are closing Seattle Dock International. And then later it's Savannah and more festivals joining internationally also. We're still working on distribution, because the movie have the urgency call for action. I think it is important to have it right now in front of their eyeballs, because only united, like people were united on Maidan, we can stop this cancer spread. People don't understanding this, but it is the war that can really spread like Second World War. Unfortunately, I think every century brings dictator who have this imperialistic desire. And if we're talking about 1812, we had Napoleon, who had imperialistic desire to take over Europe and over the world. And we all know how it's ended badly. In 1939, 1945, we had an imperialistic desire of Hitler to erase every other races from the world and have his race and have his super empire with his nation. And we saw how it's ended badly. And I guess this century brought us another monster, another dictator who had unprecedented power and nobody tried to stop him through all these 8 years of the war. And I think right now the choice is, if the world not will stop him, then the consequences will affect the rest of the world. So I think it's the time right now not to neglect this war, but to unite around Ukraine, because Ukraine is not only fighting alone in this world, it's the war of Putin against the world. So we can't leave Ukraine alone in that battlefield, because if we will fail them, tomorrow it can be Poland, tomorrow it can be Baltics, tomorrow it can be any other countries, and who knows what can happen next.